So Elise is going to talk to us about things to consider when supporting care home residents living with dementia to drink, and talk about her findings from the drink study. So Elise is a research associate and a fourth-year postgraduate researcher at the UEA. Welcome.
Okay, so thank you so much for having me back again, Leslie. So yes, I'm Ellice Parkinson. I'm a researcher from the University of East Anglia. And today I'm going to talk to you about two of my PhD studies, which became the drink study. And today I'm going to talk about considerations. So although I'm presenting my findings, these are considerations for supporting someone living in a care home who has a diagnosis of dementia to drink. I don't know why I keep skipping through. So, excuse me, as a disclaimer, I was very fortunate to be funded for my PhD project by the UEA, NIHR, ARC, East of England and South Norfolk and Suffolk CCG. Anything I report today is not representative of maybe what they think. The views expressed are my own. Okay. And also just to mention that throughout this presentation, I'm going to use the word resident or person living with dementia. I mean that respectfully. One of the studies which I'm reporting on, it's secondary data, so the people were non-identifiable to me. So just one way of capturing the participants within the study, I'll use most likely the word resident. Okay. So, firstly, some context. I don't have a lot of time today to present everything about the drink study as much as I would love to. Diane previously gave some fantastic kind of background into low intake dehydration, which is where people don't drink enough fluids to maintain their hydration. But what I would like to do is just provide some very quick kind of context as a rationale for why this study was needed. So first of all, 1 in 4 older people are dehydrated. We conducted a systematic review and meta-analysis, and we published findings this year. So it found that 1 in 4 older people are dehydrated. Importantly, within that, we found that 1 in 5 people who lived at home, so over 65 who lived at home, were dehydrated, but 1 in 3 long-term care residents were dehydrated. And there are a number of reasons for this, quite possibly for this. So older people are more at risk of low intake dehydration. So this has already been captured in previous presentations. So dehydration is difficult to accurately detect in older people. So common signs and symptoms do not work in older people. Physiological changes, mobility, cognitive ability and communication ability, these things may make drinking more difficult for an older person. And there's some research that shows that people living with cognitive impairment or dementia are more likely to be dehydrated, but this evidence is actually mixed. And that was why I wanted to conduct kind of an in-depth study to look at why this may be. So, drink study. So I devised a drink study to explore how people living with dementia drink fluids in long-term care settings. I received NHS ethical approval for this. And as I mentioned previously, it has 2 parts. It was drink A and drink B. So firstly, drink A was a 5-month ethnography. That meant that I spent 5 months in a care home conducting observations over day and night. So in total, 141 hours of day and night observations. And by the end of the study, I had 17 staff who participated and 5 residents who participated. So varying staff grade, role, and residents amongst quite a wide age range there, and variety of sex and dementia diagnoses. Study B was Dementia Talking Point Forum. So this is hosted by the Alzheimer's Society UK. I searched here for the drinking terms: drink, hydrate, juice, tea, coffee, milk, beer, dehydration, water, and looked specifically for posts relating to someone living within long-term care settings. So from 817 posts, I then kind of narrowed this down to 282 eligible posts, and then analysed the content of those posts where people spoke about someone living with dementia in a long-term care setting and related to a drinking term. So that's kind of a very whistle-stop tour of the background of these 2 studies. But what I would really like to kind of hit home is an important takeaway that what I've found from these 2 studies is it is not a one-size-fits-all. Okay, so Every resident was unique. Some residents had no difficulty drinking. So from my time spent in the care home, it was very clear that some residents had no difficulty drinking or being able to communicate to staff to request drinks. But it just isn't that simple, and I will show you why. So this is a resident drinking map which I devised from study A, so the large 5-month ethnography. And as you can see, it's very complicated. So what I'm going to do now is report the findings from both drink studies, and some of those themes overlap. So, drink study findings. So food is prioritised over, this was clear from both studies. And this is something that I've become more acutely aware of since conducting the drink study. I seem to see it everywhere now. So what I found within both studies is that drinks are sometimes substituted by fluid-rich foods. So this isn't a case of kind of fluid-rich foods being given in addition to drinks. This is where drinks are not given and fluid-rich foods replace that, okay? Things like weight loss is noticed and responded to by prescribing fortified drinks or giving calorie-dense milkshakes. So once again, this isn't drinks being given in response to someone needing to drink more, so hydration needs. These are kind of calorie-dense drinks being given to respond to weight loss because the weight loss has been noticed, but the dehydration hasn't been noticed. And this is particularly relevant to where it's noticed that eating and drinking has become problematic. It's responded to the weight loss rather than the drinking. So dining room signage or kind of care home signage shows eating and not drinking. So that may be things like the menu board or kind of icons around the home. And things like food intake was recorded for residents or participants, but drinks was not recorded for all. Okay, so once again, these resident characteristics were found across both studies. So what I found is that if residents' voice is loud enough to be heard by staff, they would receive drinks outside of routines. So their kind of hydration needs would be met that way. But quite often resident voices were very quiet or they were unable to communicate. And so they would then obviously not be able to have that communication with staff. Problem-solving skills of residents to navigate a cup or a beaker, so being able to take a lid off, being able to remove a straw if they didn't want the straw in. So this really linked to whether or not someone could finish a drink from a drinking vessel. Someone's ability to reach or ability to communicate, whether that's hearing ability or kind of verbal speaking ability, or being able the ability to kind of get the attention of staff, whether that's tapping on a table. Swallowing difficulties, and residents' other health problems, so things like falls, UTIs or COVID. These things came up from Drink Study B. So drinking and eating as indicators of health. So this came up from the Drink Study B. So this is from the public discussion forum. And what was really clear is how family caregivers or family visitors into care homes really linked the ability to eat and drink with someone's health. So when resident drinks well, family noted or reported that the resident was improving. So kind of we're turning a corner and things are going really well now. And so they would prompt drinking more and offer more drinks. However, when the family believed that the resident was reluctant to drink, or maybe the drinking became less, they would maybe accept that the resident was deteriorating or kind of nearing the more advanced stages of the dementia, and then maybe just offer kind of mouth care, or maybe offer a drink, but maybe not persist with offering that drink. So it kind of had a knock-on effect to the hydration care. So fear relating to drinking, so this came from Drink Study B, so residents might choke on fluids, or families feared that maybe giving food or drink might prolong or worsen a resident's condition. So it kind of links in with the theme beforehand. If they felt that it might have a negative impact on the resident, that they may kind of not persist with providing drinks as much. They may just kind of provide some mouth care or just wetting the lips instead of providing a drink. The role of the family visitor, this is from Drink Study A. So it was very clear that the family visitor's role was to advocate for the resident. So that may be kind of asking for drinks on their behalf, making sure that they've got a drink in the room, checking the fluid intake charts to see what they've been drinking, and providing those social drinking opportunities, kind of patiently assisting the resident to drink. So family caregivers kind of spoke of this role that they had the time. They wanted to relieve that duty from the care staff and be able to feel useful. And then brings the favourite drinks into the home. So a lot of talk about like the residents' favourite food and drinks, and that was something that they could do as a special treat. So something else I saw from the study was external support in hydration care. So this was actually in direct contrast to what I saw in the care home, actually, that on the public discussion forums, there was much more talk of a wider pool of external agencies involved in hydration care. So the GPs, speech and language therapists, nurses, paramedics, dietitians, and even social workers. So if family felt that maybe the resident wasn't receiving kind of adequate hydration care, then they would contact the social worker to have that conversation with. So kind of saw that a lot, whereas when I was in the care home, what I saw and what was being reported is that after COVID, maybe the care home didn't feel as supported with hydration care from external agencies. So the role of staff, so this is what I found from study A, so being in the care home. So staff presence led to routines being acted. So generally drinks were served during routine times, so that would be tea trolleys and meal times. And when staff were present, those routines could happen. Staff had the knowledge of residents' dietary requirements, and this had a knock-on effect to what drinks residents could have. So if someone's pre-diabetic, they couldn't have maybe some of the milkshakes, or they could just have a sweetener rather than the sugar. And it was really important for the staff to know that, to be able to then facilitate those mealtime and tea trolley routines. Staff attentiveness, so one carer did the milkshake dance when the resident finished the milkshake. So it kind of comes back to the staff member needing to be present, but also really attentive to kind of really encourage that resident to finish the whole drink and make sure that was done. And staff hearing and responding to residents' drink requests and encouraging their drinking. And then also the knowledge of the preferred drinking vessel and drinks preferences. So staff said to me that some residents drank better with china mugs or use of paper cups. And then from the care home ethnography, again, I found the role of furniture and objects, and actually I found that this was kind of pivotal to how drinks were provided to residents. So the preparedness of drink making, so whether the cups were washed up, so there was enough cups to then be served for the next routine of drinks, or whether there was sweetener on the tea trolley. The availability and accessibility of residents' tables. So if a resident didn't have a table near them, they wouldn't be able to be provided with a drink. So the staff would go and find a table. And residents were encouraged to stay seated within the care home. So naturally that meant that residents couldn't go and get a drink themselves. So they relied on staff to provide those drinks. And then finally, drinking opportunities, whether they were taken or missed. So this kind of touched upon something that Lewis mentioned earlier about kind of residents falling asleep. So sometimes care staff supported some residents to drink, and then if that was half a cup was put down, that resident may then fall asleep and they wouldn't get the rest of that drink. Or if a resident is sleeping and isn't aware that there is a drink put in front of them. If a drink was consumed, it may not always be refilled, but a resident might then touch the cup on their table to see if there was drink in there. And minimising language. This is around staff providing the drinks, but then kind of saying, we'll just have a sip, or just leave it's a bit hot at the moment, just leave the drink whilst it cools down. And what I saw is that sometimes residents would then fall asleep or forget that that drink was there, and so they kind of hadn't maximised that opportunity. So staff would prompt residents to drink, but then may leave the room, and the resident might say, oh, well, I don't know what I'm supposed to do now. And so there was no one there to then be able to follow up that prompting. If a resident was moved rooms, so maybe they moved from the lounge to the dining room, the drink was not moved with them. And then things like interruptions, so whether a staff member was assisting someone to drink, but then the doorbell rang, or there was a phone call, or they were needed elsewhere to do some other task, that drinking wouldn't then continue, so it would be kind of a missed opportunity. So I'm sorry that was such a rushed presentation, but thank you so much for listening, and I hope that this has been useful for kind of considering how to support someone living with dementia to drink in long-term care settings. I certainly don't claim that this is a magic kind of answer to all dehydration and hydration issues. It's just the findings from this drink study. Thank you to my wonderful supervisors for their guidance and support. So that's Dr. Diane Bunn, Dr. Lee Hooper, and Professor Fiona Poland at UEA. And thank you as ever to my funders who have enabled me to conduct this research. Thank you so much.
Thank you. That was great. Very interesting.
Thank you so much.
I think it was quite good to highlight some of the attitudes around hydration and reminding us to think about, you know, what is everybody's role around hydration in care homes.
It was really interesting, and the ethnography enabled me to do that, because the reason I chose that kind of study design was that I didn't want there to be any barriers on what I was saying was relevant to hydration. So I wanted any resident to be able to take part, and any staff member, anyone who came into the home to be able to take part. And what was fantastic is you see that actually all of those people were involved in hydration care. So whether it was a maintenance person or kitchen staff or a care staff, actually they were all involved in that, and it's really important.
I think that is, we're all in it together. It's this message that keeps coming out throughout the entire day today, how important it is that we all work together. And if we do work together, we're halfway there to helping and solving the problem.
Absolutely.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Leslie.
Thank you. Bye-bye.